cover in a matter of minutes in this review. So let's just start out with some of our terminology. And of course, I advise you to take notes during class because occasionally I'll give you some real wisdom that it would behoove you to write down and then use those notes as you do practice problems on the outside. And again, I want to make sure that I get across that the way that I envision these classes, these classes are not the end-all and be-all. These classes are where we discuss some of the theory, well, a lot of the theory, and then practical stuff of what you can expect to see on the test. And then I expect you to complement that with work on practice problems. I hesitate to call it homework, on the outside. The two go hand in glove. And between the two of those things, the classes and then your outside practice questions, that's going to have you very well prepared for the test. So let's just cover a little bit of terminology, and there's not a lot to this. A set is just any group of numbers that we decide for our own purposes, whatever they may be, to examine or to look at or to deal with or to calculate or something. So a set of numbers could be the numbers from 1 through 10. They could be all of the even numbers from 1 to 100. They could be all the odd numbers from 1 to 100. It's simply any group of numbers we decide to examine. The mean is the arithmetic mean. Means exactly the same thing as an average. This is going to be really important. This is going to be the main thrust of the question on at least like 3 questions or 4 questions out of about 38 questions or 40 questions that you're going to see on math. At least 3 or maybe 4 of them are going to have something to do with the mean, which is just an average. They mean exactly the same thing. Arithmetic mean, average. And what I find really helpful when you look at this is don't let them get you to make it more complicated than it needs to be, because that's what they try and do all the time. I mean, almost every question. They want you to try and spend too much time on it, expend too much mental effort, maybe get frustrated, maybe make a simple human error in doing your calculations. I find it, the way that you counteract that much better is to think about, what is the basic definition of this term or this thing that I'm working with? And in this case, the definition of a mean, if you're just joining us, the mean is exactly the same thing as an average. You simply add all the values together and then divide by the number of values. The average can be a really, really useful tool in telling us the nature of numbers that we're dealing with. Now, if you would, you notice you got the chat box below. You can send to me to host in private if you like, and then you never have to worry about maybe picking the wrong answer and having everybody see it or something. So if you'd like, what's the main problem that keeps us from using averages all the time? What's the potential risk in using the mean or using averages? The problem that can arise, and it often does, if you want to use an average to represent a whole range of values, is that you can have an extreme value at the high end or the low end that would completely distort the whole group that you're looking at. And if you're just joining us, we're just talking about by far the most important concept in statistics, which is just the mean. The arithmetic mean is the exact same thing as an average. And the problem that keeps us from using average all the time is that one extreme value can completely distort the entire picture. So here in Austin, for instance, if you go to the lake, the houses around the lake are typically $2, $3, $4 million houses. And then there's Michael Dell's house. And they had to have a lawsuit because they had no way of calculating how valuable his house was because there was nothing comparable to compare it to. And so they came up with a number like $45 million. And so if you take all those houses around the lake in that area, the average is about $22 million. And that doesn't accurately reflect the value of any of the houses. It's much too high for the regular houses, and it's only half the value of his super mansion. So the average has that serious flaw, and that's where the median comes in. The median tends to be a more accurate description of an entire group because the median, you simply take all the values and put them in a lineup from least to greatest, shortest to tallest, smallest to largest, whatever it might be, and the median is the value that falls exactly in the middle. And 50% of the values are below it, and 50% of the values are above it. And what that does is that serves to weed out, to discard extreme values at the low end and at the high end, so that what you end up with is a much truer reflection of the large majority of the group. So if you took the same houses at the lake and you arranged them from $2 million houses at the low end to Michael Dell's house at the high end, the median would be the value that falls exactly in the middle, and it would be somewhere around $3.5 million. That would accurately reflect the majority of the values. Now, the really neat thing is that, and you have to know that there's this special condition. Okay, if the numbers are evenly, if they're at even intervals, so if they're simply numbers from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that go up by an interval of 1, or if they're all the odd numbers or all the even numbers, okay, they go up by 2, then the median and the mean will be the same thing, which is nice to know. And standard deviation, we'll get into that, but that's an average of the distance that all the different units are away from the average of them all. Again, you've had this in statistics before. It's not something that you have to calculate. There's a possibility if you're doing extremely well on the test, if you're above the 700 level, you may be asked to calculate the standard deviation on no more than one question. So, you know, if that's where you've got your sights set, it's worth looking at the equation, and I'll put that up briefly later. But that's it. Those are about all the terms that you're going to need to know. Again, a set, just any group of numbers we want to work with. Mean just means an average. And what's the definition of an average? You add all the values together divided by the number of values. Median would be, if you put them all in a lineup, what number would fall exactly at the middle? If it's an odd number of values, then there will be a value that is the median. If it's an even number of values, it'll be the average of the two numbers that are one below, one above the median. And so, I mean, I just came up with this the other evening. It rang a bell. I saw this in a television program. This is something that might look like Greek to you right now, but in another half hour or an hour, this is going to take you about 4 seconds to solve this.